Hey guys, want to give you some input when I had some time this week regarding Trump's decision to vacate northern Syria. I agree with the move, but before I get into the whole situation, I just want to talk about their history as a people in regards to the Kurds. So just to refresh, the Kurds are an ethnic group that have been around for millennia in the region. That is southeast Turkey, northeast Syria, northern Iraq, and northwest Iran. So they speak their own language. They're mostly Sunni, besides the ones located in Iran. The last time they were relevant in history, relatively speaking, was Salahuddin. So he was the one who defeated the Christians during the Second Crusade at the Battle of Hattin. And also, the other time they were kind of relevant was from 1830 to 1845, when they established their own autonomous Kurdish state in defiance to the Ottomans. But overall, though, they have been ruled rather than being rulers themselves. The Ottomans ruled over them for centuries, along with the Persian Safavid Empire, which better incorporated them, actually, than the Ottomans, given that their politics, really their origins of the empire, they're actually Kurdish Persian, so they treated them a little bit better than the Ottomans overall. The Ottomans were just far more brutal to the Kurds. They had ethnic cleansings that were widespread. They even once convinced a Kurdish prince to fight his uncle in battle, only to murder him once he won. But apparently that was a pivotal moment in their history where they could have basically remained autonomous, but then they weren't. They were basically vassals to the Ottomans. So let's look at the 20th century, though. In the aftermath of World War I, the Ottomans signed the Treaty of Sèvres, which allowed for Kurdish autonomy in the breakup of the Ottoman Empire. The lists of countries that were created include British-mandated Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. It seemed like the Kurds would finally, have their own country, but a Turkish nationalist movement began to take up root, or at least grow, and it defied the Sultan and the Ottomans and the treaty that was actually signed. So they formed their own government in Ankara. They fought off the British, French, the Greeks, Armenians, and even the Italians. And they won what is known as the Turkish War of Independence. So as a result, the newly formed Turkish government signed a new treaty, dubbed the Treaty of Lausanne, with the allies from World War I. So Kurdistan was left out of this treaty. So essentially, the British were happy to get their oil-rich countries. The French were happy to get Syria. And as for the Kurds, they were basically just left to the wayside. But in the aftermath, the Kurds residing in Turkey, they attempted to break free several times but failed. About actually half of the Kurds in total, they live in Turkey. It's like some 13 million of them. The Turks, they suppressed the Kurds in various ways, ranging from the ability to speak their language. Up until recently, they weren't able to. They now allow them to actually broadcast their language on TV, only for like an hour a night. Same with radio. They can't have businesses owned and they can have businesses, but they just can't name them in their language. So just weird stuff like that. Definitely not a good situation for them in Turkey overall. Though a lot of them do fight in the military and vote in their elections, and many of them voted for Erdogan anyway. But let's look at northern Syria. So what the left and the neocons fail to tell you is that the Kurds in northern Syria do not represent all of the Kurds, which is what I've been stressing. So they're spread across several countries, and a vast majority of Kurds don't even live in northern Syria. So the group as that they're really talking about is the Syrian Democratic Force. They hold power in northeast Syria. Assad basically just uses them. He used them rather as a buffer against ISIS. But it's an alliance it's an alliance of different people ranging from the Kurds, Arabs, Assyrians, Armenians, Turkmen, and Chechens. So when people say Trump is leaving the Kurds for slaughter, they're slightly misleading by using the blanket term Kurds, given the fact that they're all across different countries. But it is the Kurdish YPG that is the leading military militia for the group. Turkey views YPG as a leftist extension of the far-left Kurdish group PKK, or the Kurdish Workers' Party, a communist guerrilla force that fights in Turkey. So Turkey is currently fighting PKK within their own borders, and some of that's actually spread over the Syrian border. YPG was created in 2003 as a direct offshoot of this communist PKK party. So Turkey is correct in asserting their connections. Turkey claimed over the years that YPG has pushed into their territorial claims as well. But overall, it's just important to point out that YPG was the most effective at defeating ISIS in Syria. We were able to do so in a combination effort with, giving them arms, training their soldiers, and having just actual boots on the ground. YPG did a lot of the heavy lifting as a result. So it's just important to understand, though, that Turkey has good relations with the Peshmerga, or the Iraqi Kurds, just not due to the Syrian Kurds, due to their connections to PKK. But anyhow, combined effort of Turkish airstrikes, YPG soldiers, U.S. investment, and manpower all combined together to defeat ISIS in Syria and removing them from all the territorial gains that they had. So on the campaign trail, Trump made it clear that he didn't want to be a part of Middle Eastern conflicts anymore if we didn't have to. So he wanted to destroy ISIS and just get out. So that's basically what he's doing. The question remains, with the human body shield that was the 1,000 soldiers of Americans in Syria, what's the domino effect that's going to happen once we pull out? And now it actually makes more sense as to why James Mattis resigned. He obviously wanted to keep a presence there. But, again, the question is asked, for how long will we have to be there for? We aren't supposed to be the world's police force. I do understand that YPG did well and helped us against ISIS, but the fact remains that ISIS would have been their problem inherently as well, since they're already there trying to take their territory and resources. We just happen to have a common enemy. But I just don't understand where the left is coming up with this talking point of they're our long ally. We only started funding YPG in 2015, so that's pretty recent. In addition, Erdogan and Turkey, Turkey is a member of NATO, and they made it clear that they view YPG as a terrorist group, though the rest of the UN doesn't. But his goal is basically to push into Syria, create a little buffer zone between him and the YPG, but specifically, really that's the Syrian Democratic Force, not, specifically YPG. But he wants to take all the Syrian refugees and kind of replace them into the areas that they were, things like that. And then there's also the talk of them just actually taking all the ISIS soldiers that were captured and processing them and, keeping them in prison, because Europe won't take them. We don't want to take them because a lot of them are not from the United States. That's another tax burden that we just don't need. But Trump did make overtures stating that if Erdogan openly attacks, he will place severe economic sanctions on Turkey. So it seems that Turkey's already launched their invasion. However, I was monitoring, there's a website you can look at. It shows like a live view of the Syrian war. You can even look at it for Kashmir too, but it basically just shows you like who's holding each territory, and then there's actually like airstrikes, little icons they show, little gunfire icons that they show. So it basically is like a live map of the war. So you can check that out. I could post that in my info on the bottom. But anyway, so just overall, I just see this as a conflict that's lasted long before the Ottomans, which can be traced to the Seljuk Turks as well. It's just been thousands of years in the making, and we can't just place all the blame on Trump for this one thing of him taking out a few troops from Syria. We can even talk about how the British and French left the Kurds out to dry when it came to the Treaty of Lausanne. So, it just begs the question, how long do people expect us to be there? The Syrian civil war started in 2011. How much longer is it going to go on? So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.